Okay, so I think we got up to the second column on 52b3. So we're a few lines past the mission on Nun Beis Amid Beis. So we're talking about this ksuvas bnin dichrin. So the ksuv of male children is that if she dies, her male sons, obviously her sons, will get the ksuva. So that's what the mission was talking about. That's what some of these things are talking about. So the Gemara asks, "Be'ema da'av lirus debal lo lirus." So the thing is that what if they're the person that so part of the reason that we have this ksuvas bnin dichrin is that the father will write a dowry for his daughter, that she's not married yet, so she should have stuff to bring into a marriage, so people would be happy to marry her. So why don't we just say that it should be only of their father, the baal lo lirs? But if it's just the husband of their mother who's not their father, or the daughter not theirs, they shouldn't have to write this ksuva in, because so they should only inherit what the father would owe as a father, but not as a husband, because in this case the mother died first, so she doesn't get the ksuva. So why do the sons inherit the value of the ksuva if she died, so she doesn't deserve the ksuva anymore? Because the ksuva is in case he dies first, the husband dies first. So the Gemara says, Im kain av nami mimnav lo kasav. If so, in this case, if the whole ksuva wasn't going to that, he wouldn't write property, dowry, or not necessarily property, whether real property or movable property, to his daughter for her dowry. So then, if he already wrote, he wrote and he committed to paying a certain dowry for his daughter, then let it only write that he should write this Tanai, that the children will the male children will inherit the mother's ksuva. But if he doesn't write it, let him not write the husband part. They shouldn't get the ksuva part of what she owes, just stuff to pay off for the daughters or whatever other stuff. So the Gemara answers lo plug Rabbanan. When the Rabbanan made this decree to have that this Tanai is given, so the Chachamim didn't make a distinction of whether he wrote it for the daughter or not. The whole purpose is to write it for the daughter, but in case he did, that doesn't take away any responsibility. It doesn't change what he has to write. Bas min abanim nami terus. So if there's a daughter among the sons, she should also inherit part of the ksuva. So if it's only, let's say that there were 3 sons and 1 daughter. So why are we splitting that into 3 parts for the 3 boys? Split into 4 parts and let a daughter get it too. Why not? So the Gemara says, Kanach lashavi rabbanan. The Chachamim made it like an inheritance. And since when they're sons, the daughters don't inherit. So here, even though this is an inheritance, but they made it like inheritance, so when they're sons, the daughters don't get it. Bas ben abanos teros. Oh, so if there's only daughters, then a daughter should get the portion of the ksuva of her mother's ksuva. We only said there's ksuvas bnin dichrin, the male son. So if there's no sons, let the daughters get it. So the Gemara says lo plug Rabbanan. The Rabbanan didn't make a distinction. They made a decree that the sons should get a portion of the ksuva, and they did not make any decree in case there are no sons. So even though they made it based on Yerusha, they only made it based on Yerusha, but they didn't make it exactly like Yerusha, that if there's no sons, then it goes to the daughters, etc., etc. So, why is this ksuvas bnin dichrin only collecting from real estate? And I'm going to jump the gun, so let me stop myself. So why can't it also be collected from movable property? So let's say he had a car, he had an art collection. So why don't we collect money from that stuff to pay this stuff? Why is it only from real estate? Why is ksuvas bnin dichrin only from real estate? So the Gemara says, ksuva shavi rabbanan. Even though it's not a ksuva, but they said it's like a ksuva, and the man's real estate is given over for ksuva. So teacher from Mishabde. So if it's like that, even if a field would have been sold, since the field was liened, or there was a lien against the field or a mortgage against the field to pay off the ksuva, let it even go be taken away from a field that he had sold to someone else. How come it's only from unencumbered fields? So Yertun, because the Mishnah says that this works like a Yerusha. The word Yertun is like Yerusha, and inheritance only comes from unencumbered fields, not fields that were already sold. If the father sold the field, we don't give the guy a refund and take the field back for Yerusha. No, the Yerusha only comes from unencumbered, unsold fields. The Ema Af Al Gav Daleka Moser Tanan. Hold on a second, please. So we said that this only takes place when after and let's say that there were two wives, whether they were concurrent or whether one died and then he married a second wife. So let's say if one ksuva was for 800, I think Rashi gave these numbers before, and the other ksuva was for 200, so altogether it's 1,000. If he had 1,500 in his estate, so we can give all the money for the ksuva to pay off both ksuvas, and there's still money for Yerusha to take place. What if one ksuva was for 800, one was for 200, but he only had, let's say, 800 total dollars in his estate? He doesn't have enough in his estate to even pay off the value of those ksuvas. What happens? So the Chachamim said this condition of ksuvas bnin dichrin only takes place where it won't take away from the Torah law of inheritance to take effect. If by doing this takana of the Chachamim, there's not going to be any money in the estate to give any Yerusha, any Nachla, the Chachamim did not make their takana in such a situation. Rab Papa Yasikle Librebe Abasura. Rab Papa was busy making arrangements for his daughter to marry the son of Abasura. Excuse me, his son to a daughter of Abasura. Azul Mechtab Ksuva. He went to write a ksuva. So something on the next amud here. So Tosfos points out, I think, on the next amud that in this case the kedushin didn't even take place yet. So normally we write the ksuva before the nesuah, not before the kedushin. But just we keep that in mind that what's going on here is a little bit before we would normally write the ksuva. So he already went to write a ksuva, and it doesn't mean the ksuva, but he was going to write. Well, he was writing the ksuva, but in the ksuva he's going to write what's the dowry that he's going to send her. Shamar Yehuda bar Meremar, Nafik Asa Ischazele. So Yehuda bar Meremar heard that Rav Papa was there, and he went and came so that Rav Papa saw him. And Kimatu Lepischa have ka mefatrmine. When they reached the door of Abba Surah's house, he wanted to leave. Now, it doesn't say Rabbi Yehuda ben Meremar or Rav Yehuda ben Meremar. It seems that he was a Talmud, not an Amora. I mean, obviously a Talmud in the time of the Amorim, but not one of the Amorim. But from the Gemara here, it seems like Yehuda bar Meremar was an important person. Maybe he should have been Amora. I don't know why he doesn't call him Rav. I don't know. Amar Le, so he wanted to leave before Rav Papa went into Abba Surah's house. Amar Le Neil Bar Bahadeh. So he says, no, stay with me. And it also says Mar. He called talking to him in the third person. So Rav Papa seems to be giving him a lot of respect. I don't know why the Gemara doesn't call him Rav. So we turned to Gimel Amadal, but he saw that Yehuda bar Meremar did not want to come in. Amar Le, my daitech. Mishum da Amar Le Shmuel Rav Yehuda Shinano lo tavi ba'avore achsanta afilami bar bisha lebra tava dole adina ma'izara nafak mine. The culture came mi bar lebarsa. so Rav Papa saw that Yehuda bar Marimar didn't want to stay, so he said, why my daitach, what's your mind? Meaning, why do you want to leave? Is it because Shmuel had told Rabbi Yehuda, sharp one, don't be involved with stuff when inheritance is being transferred from one son to another, even if it's from a bad son to a good son, because we don't know what the good son's kids are going to be like. And certainly don't be involved if the funds, the Yerusha is being reallocated or whatever from a son to a daughter, because in that case, really, on the Torah law, the daughter doesn't get it all. So if you're so certainly you shouldn't be involved if it's being taken away from a son and being given towards a daughter. However, hainami takantu rabbananhu, but this writing in this ksuva for that he's going to be giving some of his net worth to his daughter as a dowry is a takana d'Rabbanan, the Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because we had Rabbi Yochanan, the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a blot or two before that it's important to give a big dowry so the daughter will be able to find a good match. So this is a good thing to do. We're doing something that the Chachamim want us to do, so don't run away from it. Be involved with it. So Amar Le Yehuda bar Marimar said, Hani mili midaite. But that's talking about when it's voluntarily being changed, but when it's voluntarily being written. But here, it looks like, he doesn't say it looks like, but this is when you're being coerced or forced. So what does that mean? So it seems from the Gemara that Yehuda bar Marimar's presence was going to make, or he felt that his presence was going to make Abba Surah write a much bigger dowry than he would have written otherwise. So he didn't want to be there. Amar Le, so Rav Papa said to Yehuda, Atumi kamina lach de'ova asye, did I tell you to force him? Ovelo ta'asye kamina, just come in and don't force him. Just be a silent bystander. Amar Le, but Yehuda said, my le didi, hainu asiya, my just going in is just like forcing him. So Rashi says, my coming in with you is going to make a bigger dowry because of my honor. So whether Yehuda bar Marimar, maybe he wasn't Talmid Chacham, was he just important politically, whatever, I don't know, he was a very important person. So he says, my being here is going to affect how Abba Surah acts. So he didn't want to be involved, but it seems from the Gemara that he's no Amaretz, Yehuda bar Marimar. Why? So I don't know why he's not Rav Yehuda ben Marimar. Rav Papa forced him to go in Ishtik v'Yasef, so he didn't say anything. He was quiet and he was sitting. Savar hahu mirtach rasach. So that man, meaning Abba Surah, thought that Yehuda bar Marimar was upset because he didn't say anything, because that he didn't like the amount that he wrote. So therefore, so achbe, just so we know, a few lines above we had the word la'asuye. La'asuye means to force, and la'achbe also means to force. So Rashi here means that Rav Papa forced him with convincing him with words. And this actually is important because we saw in the tzedakah stuff, we mentioned that Rabbeinu Tam's opinion is when it was a certain thing of forcing, Rabbeinu Tam said it was only forcing by convincing, but not forcing with physical force. So le'isuye would probably include physical force. Not that Yehuda bar Marimar was going to use any physical force to Abba Surah, but here, when it was using different verbs for force, they do mean different things. So when Rav Papa forced him to come, Yehuda bar Marimar to come with him, he forced him just by he gave him with words, and he convinced him to come in, but not forced through physical force. But Yehuda bar Marimar felt his own presence being there was going to act like a force, even though he wasn't going to say anything, was going to force Abba bar Surah to write a bigger dowry, which is in fact what happened. So Kasvi Kolman Dahavile. So therefore, Abba wrote that everything he has will go for the dowry of his daughter. Lasof Amarle Hashta Namilo Mishtay. So Abba said to him, still you're not happy because you're not saying anything to me? But he made an oath by the life of Yehuda bar Marimar, I'm not leaving anything for myself. So Amarle, Yehuda bar Marimar said to Abu Surah, Iminai Didi, if you just want to know what I think, I feel Hainami Dixatalo Nichali. Even what you wrote isn't good for it. I don't agree with. Amarle, so then Abba said to him, Hashnami Ahadarbe, so then can I retract it? If I did this to make you happy, if you're not happy, let me retract. Amarle, he said, Shavi Nafshe Hadran Lo Kamina. I didn't say that you should turn yourself into someone who goes back on their word. So I don't think I'm understanding everything about this story, but the point is that Yehuda Bar Meimer's presence was going to have Abba Surah write everything. We saw right where we left off last week. We said, how much can you write for a dowry? And Abaye and Rava said up to 1/10. And here Abba Surah wrote up to everything. So is this Gemara? Was this story just to show that they're arguing on that? Not necessarily, because the Gemara asked a few questions before Abaye and Rava. Rabbi said what's proper, but not what's but they gave you the option to write more if you want it. Rav Yemar, the elder, asked Rav Nachman, so there's a Gemara and a Mishnah in the beginning of the third of Makos that says, because we mentioned at Edom Zomimim, that Edom Zomimim, if they gave false witness testimony about something, their punishment is they have to do what they wanted to make the other guy lose. So what if they said that a husband paid off a ksuva, or they didn't pay off a ksuva? How would you pay it off? So the Gemara talks about it's kind of like a futures market. Not exactly, but we're saying that that a woman could sell her ksuva, so the rights to her ksuva, so that if her husband would die, instead of her getting the money, she sold the rights. So Yenim, who she sold it to, is going to get the rights of the ksuva. So what if the husband, and so these are ideas of balancing risk and insurance, modern ideas, which are from a couple 2,000 years ago, almost already in the Mishnah. What if the husband was going to buy out his wife's portion of ksuva? So in case he dies, his estate doesn't have to pay off the ksuva because it's going back to himself. Because the first case I said she sold it to someone else.
It's also an incentive to kill him.
It's
an early incentive
for who?
To the wife.
No, because she doesn't get the ksuva.
Oh.
She sold her rights to the ksuva, meaning the future.
No.
But then the question is, are they allowed to stay married? Oh, right. The person that she said. Oh, yeah. That case, yeah, he would have an incentive for the guy to die. Right. So early insurance fraud also, you're saying, right? Yeah. No, right. Okay. So I thought you were talking about when she sold it back to the husband. Well, the insurance fraud through killing the insured so that the beneficiary will get it. It's just a separate question. If she sells her rights to the ksuva back to the husband, how are they allowed to stay married? Because the whole ksuva is for her benefit. And if they would lose the ksuva, they can't stay married till we write a new ksuva. So I mean, for her right to sell it to someone else, or her future value of the 200 zuz, maybe it's worth it for her to have $100 now instead of the future value of $200. So we understand that. And we saw a few weeks ago that she could write a receipt. She could say that could acknowledge that she already received part of her ksuva, but we saw as a machlokas Rabbi Meir and was a Rabbi Yossi if he still has to pay her 200 shekel or not.
And that's my biggest problem with all this too, is so for a woman, you've got a different certainty issue here between the males and the females. Because the Yerusha and Kesuba are different certainties and different time frames. I don't understand that part, and let's face it, what's the typical thing that people do nowadays? Are they going to include their female children in the
so that's a separate thing. So Rabbi Kraft from the CRC gave a share about that about a year ago here, right?
There was something in the CRC book.
Yes, that's in it, right. So in that new monthly thing that they're saying, it shows Rabbi Reese had a thing about it, but the Rabbi Kraft used to be the Rosh Chabura of the Kol Torah Mitzvah. Now he's dying at the CRC. So he gave a speech here about a year ago, I think, unless it was 2 years ago, at a mincha Shabbos afternoon about that. So you're right. Right. So Rabbi Reese spoke about it in there too. It's the same thing. So there's halachic mechanisms that you can give a gift to your daughter that will take place a moment before you die. So unless you give her a portion, right? So that's kind of a trick type thing that they do.
Right.
So yeah, so what about that? I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but
it bothered me, and well,
because they're trying to do something against the Torah. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he was again. It's he's figuring. He wrote this recently. Get people to. And
he always writes Reese.
I don't want to. Yeah, this is Rabbi Reed.
I know.
And I don't want to. I'm going to use the wrong language, but he was trying to.
Let me tell you, basically, the things that the RCA and that type, and he was the head of the RCA based in, not as the Rav Basin, but as like an administrator and doing some Dayan stuff. There's some stuff that goes on nowadays that would never have gone on in the old days. One of them is a heter iska. People make a deal with each other, and a heter iska, they're paying interest to each other, which is complete ribbis.
Right.
Rav Aaron in a share once talked about how his father said that the whole thing is a fraud, and he would never sign and would give a heter iska. They do it. It sounds like they do it a few times a month. It's a regular thing. That it's just, here's a document, it'll be a workaround, and we could pay you interest for your investing in us, even though it's ribbis. You're giving a loan. So instead of it being a loan, we're making you into a partner, even though you don't do anything. And so because you're a partner, we're guaranteeing you certain income off the top, so which basically is paying them interest. So there are these type of things that the RCA nowadays, they do these things all the time, and so they think it's normal. But if you were to ask, 100 years ago, any Rav, is this a normal thing to do? They probably would have said, no, not so much.
But do most Jews split the
I don't know.
in their will between their kids evenly, male?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. Ramosha's mentioned that in his grandfather's times, people would show their wills to the Rav just to think. And nowadays, so I've never seen any of these. So I have no idea what actually happens.
And they were conceding that he was conceding that in what he wrote, and asking people to do it again. My language, kind of
pseudo halachically based on this ksuvas chatzi ben or whatever it was called. Right.
And
it's not. Is it that much different from the prenup that we were talking about a few weeks ago? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that it's clear from different things. There's more than one example that
my interest is always
right
halacha and what is really going on.
Right. So machra ksuvos l'bayla yesh ksuvos bnin dichrin or ein ksuvos bnin dichrin. If she sold her interest, her future value of back to her husband, does she retain enough ownership that her sons would get this ksuvos bnin dichrin or not? So Amarle Rava said, "V'tiboy lach mochalas." Why do you ask if she sold the ksuba? What if she forgave the ksuba? She says, "You don't have to pay me the ksuba if you die." That's that because Amarle. So he said, I had the question about selling the afagav the equal member zuze ansua. We could have said that she was forced to because of financial considerations. It's as if you got 100 hits with a hammer. So because of her when she financially might have needed to give it up, she might have given up everything. Machals mibaya. So, but would the question be if she only voluntarily inherited it? It's not as likely that she would give up all rights to it in ksuvas bnim dichrin if she forgave it versus when she had financial reasons that forced her to sell this. So Rava answered, Pshita li, it's simple to me that mocher ksuvas lacherim yesh ksuvas bnim dichrin. If she sold it to a third party, they still have ksuvas bnim dichrin. My taima, what's the reason? Zuzi ansu. She was forced for her to sell it, but she didn't want to give up all the rights and benefits of the ksuva. But if she voluntarily forgave it to her husband, that she waived it. That's a good translation. She doesn't have ksuvas bnim dichrin. My taima achuli achelta, because she fully waived it, so she waived all of it. Because if it was that important to her, she wouldn't have waived it. If she waives it, she waives all the details. Okay, we'll leave it here. I said it'll be a short share so you could go home and light your menorahs.